A very hearty good morning, guys. Myself Pinky from IQ City 6th Sem batch. So, before starting today's topic, I would like to ask you what you all are doing right now. Turning out pages to read a book, calling, typing, doing household stuffs, or watching my video. Just think, even to lift up a pen, what do we need? From our own body itself. Guess what? Yes, you got it right. Simply your upper limbs. And from when you own this? From the 4th week of intrauterine life. From the 4th week, you started developing your extremities. So, now you are the owner of it. So, you have certain responsibilities towards it. I know your faces might be like this, what the heck she is talking about, but nothing much, guys, just learn about it. Coming back, let's start today's topic, vascular supply of upper limbs. So, basically vascular supply. Vascular means vessels. Vessels comprises of the arteries and the veins. So we will first start our topic with the arterial supply. So the arterial supply of the upper limb comprises of subclavian artery, axillary artery, brachial artery, radial artery, ulnar artery and the palmar arches. So here this is the subclavian artery arising from the brachiocephalic trunk, because this is the right side. I am showing you the right side. Okay. So why subclavian? Why subclavian? Because it's under the clavicle bone. That's why subclavian. This subclavian artery, when it reaches the outer or the lateral border of the first rib over here, it will continue to move towards the axilla and will be termed as axillary artery. Now, when this axillary artery crosses the lower border of the teres major and enters the arm, it will be termed as the brachial artery. Now this brachial artery around this cubital fossa, it will terminate as radial and ulnar artery. So before starting our topic as subclavian artery, I would rather like to clarify about the branches of the aorta. Okay, this is the arch of aorta and this is what? This is the left side. So this is the left subclavian artery. Now this is the left common carotid artery. This is the brachiocephalic trunk. This is the right common carotid supplying the neck region, and this is the right subclavian artery supplying our upper extremity, right side upper extremity. So next we will start with subclavian artery. Subclavian artery has three parts with reference to the scalenus anterior muscle. Remember this, with reference to scalenus anterior muscle. It has branches. How many branches does it has? So let's see. So here the first part comprises of three branches. What are those branches? VIT branches. V for vertebral, I for internal thoracic and T for subclavian. With reference to this scalenus anterior muscle. Remember this. Second part has the costocervical trunk, and the third part has the dorsal scapular artery. Now this dorsal scapular artery in rare cases might be a branch of this thyrocervical trunk. In rare cases, thyrocervical trunk gives us dorsal scapular artery. So this is a PG entrance question, so remember this. Note, this first part has internal thoracic artery, which is even known as internal mammary artery. Okay, this supplies wholly to the mammary gland. Now the thyrocervical trunk has three branches. S for suprascapular, I for inferior thyroid, T for transverse cervical. So here suprascapular helps us in scapular anastomosis. I will discuss about this in later part of my slide. So this was just a teaser for you. So this is the first part of the subclavian artery, second part and third part, and as it reaches the outer border of the first rib, it will be considered as the axillary artery. Now this first part, what we have? Vertebral artery, we have the internal thoracic artery, we have the thyrocervical trunk. And now this thyrocervical trunk will have three branches, which is the suprascapular, which is the inferior thyroid, and the transverse cervical. So next we will start with axillary artery. So parts, it also has three parts, but with reference to pectoralis minor muscle. Okay, this is even a PG question, that's why I am telling you to remember this with reference to pectoralis minor. Subclavian artery with reference to scalenus anterior. S for subclavian, S for scalenus. Okay. Now these branches. Now the first part will be proximal to the muscle, to the pectoralis minor muscle, which will have superior thoracic artery. The second one will be deep to the muscle. Deep to which muscle? Pectoralis minor muscle. We will have thoracoacromial and lateral thoracic. Thoracoacromial is also known as acromiothoracic or thoracoacromian. So, in which term you are suitable? You are suitable to which term? You use that. Third part is distal to the pectoralis minor muscle, which is anterior circumflex humeral, posterior circumflex humeral, and subscapular artery. So circumflex, what do you mean by circle? A circle means which goes around. Okay, so circumflex over here, it is going around certain structure which is the humerus bone, which is around the surgical neck of humerus. So this is the humeral bone. So circumflex humeral. Okay, next is, we will discuss this one. This is what? This is the axillary artery, and this is the anterior circumflex humeral, this is the posterior circumflex humeral. And you can see here that the posterior circumflex humeral is going around a space and then covering the surgical neck of humerus. What is this space called? This space is known as the quadrangular space, and the content of the quadrangular space is basically this posterior circumflex humeral artery and our axillary nerve. So brachial artery, here I have given it in a format wise because it comes in your professional examinations. So you have to read about it, and the question related to the professional I will discuss in the later half. Formation, it is the continuation of axillary artery. Extent, it is from the lower border of teres major to the neck of the radius. Termination, it is divided into radial and ulnar artery. Branches, yes, now branches, it will be profunda brachii, it will be superior and inferior ulnar collateral, nutrient artery to the humerus, radial artery and ulnar artery. I will show you a picture of this in the next part. So, this radial artery supplies the thumb and half of the index finger. With respect to the hand, I am telling about with respect to the hand, it also supplies our forearm and even the wrist part, but I am talking about the hand. And the rest is supplied by the ulnar artery. So, ulnar artery supplies how many fingers? It supplies the 3.5 fingers. And radial artery continues as deep palmar arch in between the heads of adductor pollicis. In between the heads of adductor pollicis. Now ulnar artery. Ulnar artery continues as superficial palmar arch at the transverse carpal ligament. Remember this, transverse carpal ligament. So here ulnar starts with U and superficial also has a U in it. So remember that ulnar always gives superficial palmar arch. So this is my way. You can take it if you feel comfortable with it. Otherwise you have your own mnemonics. Do apply those because it helps us to remember the things in appropriate manner. So next, radial artery. Radial artery gives us all these branches, of which you might face a question in your PG examinations, as this one is a superficial palmar arch which supplies the skin of the thumb and the index over this area mostly, and the hands princeps pollicis and radialis indicis. So this is the princeps pollicis and this is the radialis indicis. The radialis indicis will supply the medial side of the index finger and the thumb is supplied by the princeps pollicis artery. So these supplies the deeper aspect, while the superficial palmar branch will supply our subcutaneous and the skin part mainly. So the superficial part is supplied by the superficial palmar branch. Terminates as deep palmar arch. This deep palmar arch, what is this? This is the deep palmar arch, the deep red color. So this will give 10 branches. 3 palmar metacarpal arteries, 3 proximal perforating arteries, 3 distal perforating arteries, and a recurrent branch. Remember these branches, it comes in your PG entrance examinations. Okay. So next we will come to ulnar artery. Now ulnar artery has branches anterior ulnar recurrent, posterior ulnar recurrent, common introitious, anterior introitious and posterior introitious. This posterior introitious over here, this posterior introitious of the ulnar artery, see over here, this is the ulnar artery, and this posterior introitious artery will give this anterior, and this is the introitious posterior, this is the anterior introitious, this is the posterior introitious, and this is the introitious recurrent. So it is even asked in your PG questions that from where the introitious recurrent originates, from which branch. So you have to give the answer, you have to mark the answer as posterior introitious branch of the ulnar artery. So then comes the muscular artery, carpal, palmar carpal, dorsocarpal, and deep palmar branch, and continues as the superficial palmar arch. Okay, superficial palmar arch. So in the brachial artery we have to know about, this is the superior and this is the inferior ulnar collateral from the brachial artery, and this is the anterior ulnar recurrent and posterior ulnar recurrent from the ulnar artery. Okay, and now the superficial, the superficial palmar arch will give 4 digital palmar arteries. Okay, 4 digital palmar arteries. First one will supply the medial side of the little finger, while the second, third and fourth will act as the common palmar digital arteries. Look over here, this is the superficial palmar arch and this is the digital arteries, common palmar digital arteries. So next we will move on to the applied anatomy or the clinical portion. So artery commonly used for auscultation is the brachial artery in the front of elbow. So in physiology you might have been taught that brachial artery lies on the medial side of the biceps tendon, and how to get that pulsation, how to feel that pulsation, you need to flex your elbow and you will feel the tendon of biceps. So medial to that you will find this brachial artery. So brachial artery pulsation is usually taken for the BP measurement, blood pressure measurement. Artery commonly used for taking arterial pulse is radial artery in front of the wrist on the lateral side. Usually, commonly used. Even the ulnar artery also gives us pulsation, but actually this artery, radial artery, lies lateral to this radialis tendon. Okay, but here in the ulnar artery we find that the muscles, it is below the muscles, the overlying structures are the muscles and the tendon, so it's very feeble to feel it, but we can feel it. But that's why to clear out the confusion, we take which are superficial, right? So radial artery can be felt the most, that's why we take radial artery for the pulse rate measurement. Chief source of blood supply to the forearm is the ulnar artery. Deepest artery in the front of forearm is the anterior interosseous artery. Anterior interosseous artery, that brachial artery branch. Sorry. Okay. Anterior interosseous artery is a branch of what? Yes, you got it right. Common interosseous. Common interosseous is a branch of ulnar artery. So anterior and posterior interosseous. So anterior interosseous is the deepest artery in the front of forearm. Rupture of brachial artery and supracondylar fracture of the humerus may lead to Volkmann's ischemic contracture. So I told you previously that you might get a question on this brachial artery. By like what? The question that you will be given is, 10 years old child had a fall on his outstretched hand and has been diagnosed from the supracondylar fracture of humerus. Describe the structures likely to be damaged and brief about it. So likely structures in my opinion are the median nerve and this brachial artery. So this brachial artery in the supracondylar fracture will lead to Volkmann's ischemic contracture. That means paralysis of flexure muscles of the forearm due to ischemia. Bleeding from the palmar arterial arches or any artery distal to brachial artery can be stopped via compression of the brachial artery against the shaft of the humerus at the level of the insertion of the coracobrachialis. So when there is a profuse bleeding from the palm or due to any trauma and emergency, so you need to do what? You need to compress, you need to occlude this brachial artery against the shaft of the humerus, and it will restrict your bleeding to some extent. So these are the pulse points you might learn in physiology, but also here look at this. This is the axillary pulse, this is the radial pulse in the anatomical snub box. Yes, what is the content of anatomical snub box? This radial artery. Okay, this is the brachial pulse in mid-arm, brachial pulse in the cubital fossa, and this is the ulnar pulse. Now we come to Allen's test. Allen's test is not important for your professionals, but it is important for your PG entrance exam. So what do you mean by this Allen's test? Allen's test is just a test which you should perform before cannulizing your radial artery. Okay, in most of the times this Allen's test is generally performed to check out the anastomosis between the superficial palmar arch and the deep palmar arch. It is also used to check the patency of the ulnar artery, that whether this anastomosis works or not. Why only when radial artery cannulation is done? Because in radial artery cannulation there are many chances, high chances to get thrombosis. So this thrombosis will lead to ischemia of your thumb and the index finger. Okay, So before performing canalization or before doing any kind of intravenous injections or before taking out blood from the radial artery, you must perform this test to be on the safe side. What you need to do, you need to clench your fist for about 30 seconds. You might see pallor. On clenching your fist. So when you release this radial artery and the ulnar artery is occluded, when you release this ulnar artery, you may see that the pallor has gone. The pallor is not there in any of the fingers. So this suggests this normal color of your hand is returned. Returning of the normal color to your hand suggests that ulnar artery basically is patent of supplying to the whole hand. Okay, if there is radial artery thrombosis, it might not cause ischemia. But if this color has not returned, it is supposed we will take it as abnormal case and we will avoid doing cannulation on the radial artery. Okay, so it is basically a test to determine the collateral circulation which is present from the ulnar artery in case of thrombosis that occurs in the radial artery. So next, yes, scapular anastomosis. This is even important for your PG because of clinical importance. Where is the anastomosis? You can see. What do you mean by anastomosis? The communication between the neighboring vessels. It is basically a collateral circulation, right? So show me the anastomosis. Is this the anastomosis? Is this the anastomosis you can find? Yes, it is the anastomosis. This is the communication between the neighboring vessels. Here is also a communication between the neighboring vessels. Okay. So, coming to the anastomosis, this anastomosis is done by the suprascapular artery. And here the anastomosis is between the suprascapular and the subscapular. And here it is thoracodorsal artery and the dorsal scapular artery. Anastomosis. Okay. And suprascapular, which is a branch of thyrocervical trunk. Thyrocervical trunk is the first part of the subclavian artery. So if suppose you know about cervical rib, so somebody has a cervical rib. If there is a cervical rib, there will be an occlusion over here in the subclavian artery. If the subclavian artery gets occluded, so there might be ischemia in the shoulder joint, in the dorsal part of the scapula, in upper extremities, right? So we need collateral circulation. This is the importance of anastomosis, the collateral circulation. Okay, so the pressure, there will be high pressure in the blood. Pressure will develop over here, so this will reach the thyrocervical trunk. Now this thyrocervical trunk, it will move on to this suprascapular and it will move on to this transverse cervical. Okay, now suprascapular will go all around above suprascapular. Why suprascapular? Because it is going above the scapula. So it is going all above the scapula and it is anastomosing with our third part. This is the first part of the subclavian, which is giving thyrocervical trunk, which is providing us with the suprascapular artery, and now this third part of the axillary artery will give us this subscapular artery, right? So posterior circumflex humeral, anterior circumflex humeral, and subscapular artery is given by the third part of axillary artery. So here it comes and it will anastomose with this and prevent the ischemia. Okay. Now this subscapular artery will continue as thoracodorsal artery, okay, and this transverse cervical will continue as the dorsal scapular artery to anastomosis in the lower border of the scapula. So here comes to anastomosis, which is important in your PG entrance examination due to cervical rib, because there is occlusion in the subclavian artery and we require collateral circulation, otherwise the patient will undergo ischemia. So next we will come to venous drainage. Vessels comprises of arteries and veins, and we have already discussed our arterial supply, its clinical importance. Now we will come to the venous drainage. So venous drainage is basically about what? About this. This is the superficial palmar venous arch. The superficial palmar venous arch will lead to our deep veins. Superficial leads to our deep veins. This is the radial vein, this is the ulnar vein. Before that I should clear out that venous drainage in the upper extremity is divided into two parts: superficial veins and the deep veins. Okay, now I am discussing the deep veins. This is the radial vein, this is the ulnar vein. This radial and ulnar vein will drain into the brachial vein. This brachial vein, which will drain into this axillary vein, and this axillary vein will drain into the subclavian vein. Okay, this is the ventral side shown. On the dorsal side we have dorsal venous arch. Now this dorsal venous arch will give us this cephalic vein, okay, this cephalic vein and this basalic vein. Now this cephalic vein will go all above the arm and pierce the clavipectoral fascia to join into this axillary vein, while this basalic vein will drain into this brachial vein. Okay, now these will again drain in over here. This is the subclavian vein, and now when we are having this subclavian vein, where it will drain? So this is the internal jugular you can find, and this is the external jugular vein, and this is the right subclavian. When this right subclavian joins with this internal jugular vein, it will drain into the brachiocephalic vein, and now this brachiocephalic vein will drain into the superior vena cava, and the superior vena cava will drain into our right atrium. Same goes over this side: left subclavian, external internal jugular, brachiocephalic vein and superior vena cava, and the rest portion will discuss in the thorax part. Okay, so coming to next, we will talk about the superficial veins. Now superficial veins are basically the cephalic and the basalic veins. Cephalic and basalic veins. So you might also term this as basalic. So basalic vein originates from the dorsal venous arch. Shall we compare and study? Yes, it would be a better option. So cephalic vein also arises from the dorsal venous arch of the hand and ascends along the medial aspect. If basalic vein is on the medial aspect, then cephalic vein should be on the lateral aspect, but here it is on the lateral aspect but anterolaterally. So look at this. This is the dorsal venous arch and this is going anterolaterally. Okay, and this is on the medial side of the hand. So the course of the basalic vein is at the border of the teres major. The vein moves deep to the arm. Here it combines with the brachial veins, forms the deep venous system to form the axillary vein. The course of the cephalic vein: at the shoulder, the cephalic vein travels between the deltoid and the pectoralis major, that is, goes through the deltopectoral groove and enters the axilla region via the clavipectoral triangle. Via piercing this clavipectoral fascia, it will empty into the axillary vein. So clavipectoral fascia is an important topic for your professional examinations, and even this cephalic vein is also important. It comes as a short note in your professional examination. Communication: the cephalic vein communicates with the basalic vein via the medial cubital vein. So here is the median cubital vein and here is the cephalic, which is on the anterolateral aspect, and this is the medial aspect of the basalic vein. So deep veins, I previously told you, it arises from the superficial palmar arch. I'm extremely sorry for this. Superficial palmar arch, and it will form this radial and ulnar vein, and it will drain into the brachial vein, which is the largest of all the veins, and it will drain into the axillary vein. Okay, these deep veins in the upper limb are relatively small and accompany the arteries of the same name. They are usually paired and thus known as vena comitatus. This is even important, vena comitatus. So next we will go for the applied anatomy or the clinicals. So most prominent superficial vein in the body is medial cubital vein. Most commonly used vein for venipuncture is median cubital vein. Longest superficial vein of the upper limb is the cephalic vein. So the veins in the front of the elbow, especially the median cubital vein, is most preferred site for intravenous injections, for drawing out blood, for anything. Okay, why? Because it is the most superficial vein of the body and hence access is easy. It is well supported by the underlying bicipital aponeurosis. It is well anchored to the deep veins via perforating vein, and hence it does not slip during the procedure. Okay, this point is important. Now cephalic vein is used for hemodialysis in the patients with chronic renal failure, and the basalic vein is preferred for cardiac catheterization for the following reasons: because the diameter of the basalic vein increases as it ascends from the cubital fossa to the axillary vein, unlike to cephalic vein, because its diameter remains the same, it doesn't increase, and it is in direct line with the axillary vein, unlike cephalic vein, which is in right angle to axillary vein. You can remember C stands for cephalic vein, so C will not go for cardiac catheterization, it will go for hemodialysis. Okay, so next I will suggest you a book, that is Frank H. Netter Atlas book, because it will be a great help in your dissection, for your dissection purposes. It will be a great help for your surface marking purposes and even for your radiological purposes. So buy this book and get all your things about anatomy clear. So I would suggest this book as a must buy one. So basically, thank you.